And we need to be absolutely sure that we really are turning the corner on inflation. And that's why we've increased bank rate today.
The Bank of England has raised interest rates from 3.5% to 4% in a bid to tame sky-high inflation. Inflation has come down slightly, it's at 10.5%, but that's still very, very high, especially when you consider the Bank of England's target is 2%. The idea is that by raising the base rate, the Bank of England raises the cost of borrowing, which increases the cost of doing so and discourages people from borrowing, meaning there's less money going into the economy and it slows the economy down. The question that people quite rightly ask is, well, why, if the inflation that we've got is coming from imported inflation, such as energy prices and food, is the Bank of England making the cost of borrowing more expensive in this country? Well, the answer is because it's not trying to do anything about the inflation that we've already had. It's trying to stop the inflation that we would get in the future by slowing the economy down. The bad news for mortgage borrowers is that rising interest rates means that their cost goes up. If you've got a tracker rate mortgage, your mortgage rate will rise automatically. If you've got a variable rate mortgage where the bank or building society decides how much of it's passed on, you'll have to wait and see what happens. If you've got a fixed rate mortgage, which most people do nowadays, then you will be protected, but only until your deal ends. At which point you're likely to find that, unfortunately, you're going to be remortgaging onto a much higher rate than the one that you're coming off. Mortgage rates shot up after the mini budget. Good news is they've actually come down in recent times, even as the base rate has continued to rise. So there is a question as to whether fixed rates will stabilise where they are now or whether they will continue to go up slightly. Rising interest rates are good news for savers because it means they're getting a better return on their money. And in fact, we've seen savings rates shoot up this year. If you look at This Is Money's independent Best Buy savings tables, which you can find at thisismoney.co.uk/save, that's where you'll find all the best rates. And these have gone from around 0.75% just over a year ago on an easy access rate to more than 3% now, or more than 4% on fixed rates. Again, these had run ahead of the Bank of England base rate decisions, so they've actually come down slightly recently, even as the base rate continued to rise. Hopefully savings rates will go up again, but probably not as much as they have done, and it's really important to move your money onto the best rate. Inflation is forecast by the Bank of England to start dropping rapidly very soon. So at the moment it's at 10.5%. It's forecast to fall to 3% by the end of this year. It's then forecast to be 1% at the start of 2025 and below 1% at the start of 2026. It's really important to bear in mind that these forecasts are regularly wrong. They often change. Hardly anybody predicted that inflation was going to go above 10%, for example. But what will happen is that it's a simple case of mathematics that as the sudden inflation shock of the spike in energy prices and food starts to fall out of the numbers, it will come down. Unfortunately, inflation falling doesn't necessarily mean that life is going to become cheaper. You could find a situation where prices just stabilize at this very high level and inflation drops all the way back down. But hopefully some of those things that we spend a lot of money on, energy, food, fuel, will actually come down in price. With the base rate at 4% already, having risen all the way up from 0.1% in December 2021, there is an expectation that we're quite near to the top of this interest rate cycle. There's some debate as to whether rates will go up to 4.5%, which is what the peak is expected to be. Some are saying that they might not. They might only go up by 0.25 percentage points to 4.25%. There's some outlier forecasts saying that 4% might be the top. What's clear though, if you look at the Bank of England's forecast, is that they don't expect interest rates to then start coming down sharply. In fact, they see interest rates are only just below 4%, so really roughly where they are now, as far out as 2 to 3 years' time. But those forecasts can be wrong, and if the recession is much worse than it's expected to be, if inflation drops much further than thought, if we fall below 0% into deflation, then you could find deeper, sharper and faster interest rate cuts than are expected.